I had always thought that my marriage to Lisa was solid. We met in college and immediately hit it off. She was everything I ever wanted: smart, gorgeous, and full of life. We built a life together, complete with our cozy home in the suburbs and two wonderful kids. But lately, something felt off. It started with subtle changes. She was more distant, spending late nights working or out with friends. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the little signs added up. It wasn't just her late nights. It was the way she would dismiss my questions. "Stop being paranoid, Jake," she'd say with a roll of her eyes. Or when I would jokingly mention the idea of checking her phone, she'd laugh it off, a little too nervously. I brushed it aside, convincing myself that it was just the stress of work and parenting. But as the weeks turned into months, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then came the night that changed everything. I had just returned home from a late shift at work, exhausted and ready to collapse into bed. As I walked in, I noticed Lisa's phone buzzing incessantly on the kitchen counter. My first instinct was to ignore it, but when I saw the name on the screen, David Marks, a local politician, my heart sank. I had heard her mention his name casually a few times, always in a positive light, but I never thought much of it. Curiosity got the better of me and I picked up the phone. I know I shouldn't have, but I was desperate for answers. I unlocked it. She never bothered with a password and went straight to her messages. What I found made my stomach turn. There were flirty texts, explicit messages, and plans for secret meetups. My hands trembled as I read through them, realizing that not only was she cheating on me, but with someone who had a reputation to uphold. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. I felt numb, the world around me blurring as reality settled in. My wife, the mother of my children, was having an affair. I had to confront her. There was no way I could let this go. I waited until she came home, pacing the living room. When she walked through the door, her face lit up, but that light dimmed as she noticed my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, a hint of concern mixed with confusion. "Who is David Marks?" I demanded, voice steady but my heart racing. Her face paled, and for a moment I could see the gears turning in her mind, searching for a plausible excuse. "Jake, it's not what you think." She started, but I cut her off. "Not what I think. I can read the messages, Lisa," I shouted, holding up her phone as evidence. The look of shock turned to anger as she started to deny everything. "You're invading my privacy. This is so unfair," she yelled back, her eyes narrowing into slits. Unfair. I was the one who was cheated on. I was shocked by her reaction. How could she twist this around on me? The conversation devolved quickly, with her calling me paranoid and insecure while I threw her lies back in her face. In that moment, I felt a surge of rage and sadness mixed together. How could she lie so easily? How could she betray us for a man who had everything to lose? I had to process the emotional fallout of that confrontation. It felt as if the ground beneath me had crumbled away and I was free falling through a void, unsure of where I would land. My mind raced with anger, sadness, and confusion. I thought about my kids, about how this would affect them, and I felt the weight of that responsibility like never before. I needed to make a decision. Would I fight for our marriage or expose her for what she truly was? As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized that I couldn't let this go. I had to do something that would ensure she would face the consequences of her actions. I wanted revenge, and I wanted the world to see her for who she really was. In the coming days, I began to formulate a plan. I would gather evidence, go public, and watch her reputation crumble. It wouldn't just be about hurting her. It would be about standing up for myself, about reclaiming my dignity. This was far from over. The days following the confrontation were a blur of emotions and sleepless nights. I felt like a ghost in my own home, moving through life on autopilot while Lisa tried to act as if everything was normal. She would smile at the kids, help with homework, and cook dinner, but the tension in the air was palpable. I could see her trying to play the victim, deflecting her guilt onto me, and it infuriated me more than I could express. Each time I looked at her, I felt that familiar surge of anger and betrayal. I couldn't shake the images of her with David Marks from my mind. The way she talked about him, the excitement in her voice, it was all a facade. I was determined to expose the truth, not just for my sake, but for everyone who might be affected by her lies. I began my plan in secret. First, I started gathering any evidence I could find. I went through her phone again, taking screenshots of text messages and saved photos. It was painful to relive her betrayal, but I had to stay focused. I dug deeper into David Marks, looking for any scandals or dirt I could uncover. It turned out he had quite a reputation. His political career was riddled with rumors of affairs and shady dealings. I knew that if I could link him to Lisa, it would create a scandal that no one could ignore. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how intertwined their lives had become. He was a powerful figure in our community, and she was clearly enthralled by him. I remembered the way she had gushed over his speeches and community initiatives, but it was all a cover for their secret rendezvous. I couldn't believe I had been so blind. One afternoon, while the kids were at school, I decided to take a trip to a local cafe where David often held meetings. Armed with a notebook and a pen, I sat at a discreet table, watching the comings and goings of politicians and lobbyists. I would catch a glimpse of Lisa if she arrived, but more importantly, I would listen for any conversations that could help me in my quest. After a couple of hours, I overheard a group of men discussing the latest news regarding David. They were joking about his latest conquests and how he always had a beautiful woman on his arm. My heart raced as I scribbled down details, knowing that this could be the ammunition I needed. When I returned home that evening, I felt a sense of purpose. I was no longer just a victim in my own story. I was the one writing the narrative. I began piecing everything together, creating a timeline of events that would expose Lisa and David's affair. But things took a sudden turn when I received an unexpected phone call. It was from a journalist named Claire, whom I had met at a charity event a few months earlier. She had a keen interest in local politics and the stories behind the headlines. I hesitated before picking up, unsure of how much I wanted to reveal. "Jake, it's Claire. I hope I'm not bothering you," she said, her voice warm and inviting. "I came across some interesting information about David Marks and I thought you might want to know." My heart raced again. "What do you have?" I asked, trying to maintain my composure. "Let's just say that there are whispers about his extracurricular activities, if you know what I mean. I've heard he's been linked to several women and the rumors are starting to surface. If you have any evidence, it could make for quite a story." I couldn't believe my luck. This was exactly what I needed. I glanced at Lisa, who was in the other room, oblivious to what was unfolding. "I have some information," I said cautiously, "but I need to know more about what you have." We ended the call with a plan to meet the next day. I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it, the moment where I could finally take control of the situation. That night, while Lisa slept, I lay awake, contemplating the consequences of my actions. I was about to expose not only my wife but also a well-connected politician. The thought of confronting Lisa with the knowledge that I was going to make her affair public sent shivers down my spine. But I knew it was necessary. I had been wronged, and I wouldn't let her walk away unscathed. I would make sure everyone saw her for who she really was, and maybe in the process I could heal the wounds she had inflicted on me. The world would know the truth, and it would be my catharsis. The next day I met Claire at a coffee shop, and as I laid out my evidence, I felt a mix of fear and excitement. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would reclaim my power and expose the betrayal for everyone to see. I was ready for whatever came next. Meeting Claire was like standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into the unknown. I laid out everything I had gathered: text messages, timelines, and the information I'd overheard at the cafe. She listened intently, her professional demeanor turning into intrigue as the pieces fell into place. "This is substantial, Jake," she said, her eyes lighting up with each revelation. "If you want to go public with this, we might be able to turn it into a full expose. But you need to be sure. This will change everything." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I never anticipated that my quest for revenge would lead me to a journalist willing to help me bring the truth to light. Claire's words echoed in my mind, and I realized that I was standing on the brink of a decision that would alter the course of my life. "I'm ready," I said, the determination surging through me. I want to expose her and him. The look in Claire's eyes shifted slightly as if she could sense the storm brewing inside me. Just remember, Jake, once this is out, there's no going back. You have to consider the fallout, especially for your kids. I took a deep breath, the reality of my situation washing over me. The thought of my children being caught in the crossfire made me hesitate momentarily. But then I remembered their innocent faces, the laughter that had faded from our home, and the betrayal that Lisa had inflicted. No, I couldn't back down. They deserved to know the truth about their mother, especially if it meant protecting them from future heartbreak. After our meeting, I felt invigorated yet anxious. I headed home, my mind racing with the possibilities. I knew that once the story broke, Lisa would have nowhere to hide. The thought of her being exposed filled me with a sense of power, a feeling I hadn't had since discovering her affair. When I walked through the door, Lisa was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. I felt a surge of anger at the sight of her, so carefree and oblivious to the storm that was about to break. I couldn't let her see how much I was struggling with the decision I had made, so I forced a smile and acted as if everything was fine. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder. "Just busy, you know how it is," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I could see her eyes narrow slightly, the doubt creeping in. She always had an uncanny ability to sense my emotions, but I was determined not to give her any clues. We ate dinner in silence, the tension hanging thick in the air. I could feel her stealing glances at me, waiting for me to crack, but I kept my composure, pushing the thoughts of the impending expose to the back of my mind. When the kids were finished and headed to their rooms, I knew I had to confront her again. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my heart racing as I caught her off guard. "About what?" she replied, her voice all sweetness and innocence. "About you and David Marks." Her face paled, and for a moment I saw fear flash in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" "I told you it's nothing, you're just being paranoid." I leaned forward, refusing to let her deflect this. "You know it's more than nothing. I know everything, Lisa. I have proof." The color drained from her face and she backed away slightly, her composure faltering. "You wouldn't dare," she said, a mix of anger and panic in her tone. "Oh, I will. You think I'm just going to sit here and let you destroy our family without consequences? You thought you could get away with it. I'm not going to let you." Her expression shifted, her eyes narrowing as she collected herself. "You're just trying to control me, Jake. This isn't about me, it's about you wanting to feel superior because you think you caught me. You're twisting this." "No, Lisa, I'm exposing the truth. You think I'd let you play the victim? I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you've done." The reality of my words hung heavily between us. I could see her scrambling for a response, her mind racing to find a way to manipulate the situation back in her favor. But I had already made my decision. "I'll fight." "You on this?" she shot back, her voice cold and defiant. "You'll regret it." "Do your worst," I replied, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. I was finally taking control of my life, and there was no turning back. That night, as I lay in bed next to her, I felt a bittersweet sense of relief. I knew that the storm was coming and it would be a turbulent one. But for the first time since I discovered her infidelity, I felt empowered. I was no longer a passive participant in my own life. I was ready to step into the chaos and reclaim my truth. The battle lines were drawn, and I was prepared to fight for my dignity, my family, and the truth. Tomorrow, I would meet with Claire again, and we would take the first steps toward exposing Lisa and David. I knew it would be messy, but I also knew it was necessary. The truth had a way of breaking down walls, and I was ready to watch everything she had built come crashing down around her. The next morning arrived with a heavy weight on my chest. I was both anxious and determined as I prepared for my meeting with Claire. I had half a mind to back out, to hold off on exposing Lisa and David, but the anger I felt pushed me forward. I was done being the victim. I was reclaiming my narrative. As I walked into the coffee shop, Claire was already seated at a corner table, her laptop open and notes scattered around her. She looked up and immediately sensed my tension. "You ready for this?" she asked, her voice steady and reassuring. I took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, my voice firm. "Good, let's go over what we have first," she said, gesturing for me to sit. Over the next hour, we meticulously reviewed everything I had gathered, the texts, the timeline, and the rumors about David. Claire took notes, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she crafted the outline of the article. "Listen, Jake," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "This isn't just a story about an affair. This is about power dynamics, manipulation, and the reality of betrayal. If you're going to do this, you need to be prepared for the fallout, not just for Lisa but for yourself." I nodded, absorbing her words. "I understand. I want to be ready for whatever comes next." As we wrapped up our meeting, Claire told me she'd start digging deeper into David's background, looking for anything that could bolster our case against him. "We'll keep this under wraps for now, but once we're ready, we'll publish. I want to make sure we have everything lined up and rock solid before we go public." Feeling a mix of dread and exhilaration, I returned home, knowing that the clock was ticking. The plan was in motion and I had to prepare myself for what was to come. I still had to face Lisa, knowing that she was completely unaware of the storm building around her. The afternoon passed slowly, each tick of the clock intensifying my anxiety. I was on high alert, scanning her every move as she went about her business, packing lunches for the kids, tidying up, and pretending that nothing was wrong. It was infuriating, watching her carry on as if she hadn't shattered our lives. When the kids returned from school, I forced myself to act normal for their sake. I helped them with their homework and engaged in casual conversation, all the while feeling the weight of my secret hanging over me. How would they react when the truth came out? Would they understand? After dinner, when the kids were tucked in bed, I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. I needed to confront Lisa again, not just about the affair, but about the consequences that were about to unfold. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone, and I took a deep breath before approaching her. "Lisa, we need to talk again," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. She looked up, her expression shifting from irritation to defensive. "What now? Are you going to accuse me of something else? Because I'm tired of this, Jake. It's not just about you anymore. This is bigger than us," I replied, standing my ground. "What do you mean?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Claire is a journalist and I'm working with her to expose the affair. Your relationship with David Marks will be public knowledge soon," I revealed, watching her reaction closely. Her face blanched, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "You would," she gasped, her voice trembling. "I will. You've made your choices, Lisa, and now you have to face the consequences." "No, you can't do this. I'll fight you, Jake. You're ruining everything," she shouted, her anger boiling over. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at seeing her lose her composure. "You're the one who ruined everything, Lisa. You made this choice. I didn't force you into bed with another man." She was pacing now, her hands wringing in frustration. "You're being cruel. You think this is going to help you. You think this is going to make you feel better. It's not about feeling better, it's about standing up for myself. I'm not going to let you walk away scot-free." I could see her scrambling for words, realizing that her manipulation tactics were failing her. "You'll regret this, Jake. You're playing a dangerous game." "Maybe I am," I replied, feeling a mix of fear and exhilaration. "But I'm done being the victim. I'm done allowing you to dictate this narrative." Lisa fell silent, the reality of the situation settling in. It was evident that she hadn't fully grasped how serious I was about this, but now the stakes were high. I was prepared for the fallout, whatever it might be. That night, as I lay awake in bed, my mind raced with the possibilities. I had no idea how the public would react, how my friends and family would take the news, but I was resolute. I had made my decision, and there was no turning back. The following day, Claire called to inform me that she was ready to move forward with the story. I felt a jolt of adrenaline at her words. This was it. I was about to step into the chaos, and I was ready to watch Lisa's world crumble, right alongside the man she had chosen over me. The thought brought me a sense of calm amidst the storm of emotions. I was no longer a passive participant. I was taking control of my life. The morning after my confrontation with Lisa felt surreal. I woke up with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The plan was set in motion, and I knew that by the end of the day, everything would change. My phone buzzed with a message from Claire as I was getting ready for work. "We're going live at noon. Are you ready? I took a deep breath, my heart racing. Ready as I'll ever be, I replied, feeling the weight of my decision settle over me. As I left for work, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. I had been the one to initiate this storm, but now I was gripped with uncertainty about the consequences. Would Lisa retaliate? Would I face backlash from the community? What would my children think? I fought to silence those thoughts as I focused on my job, but they lingered like shadows in the back of my mind. When noon finally arrived, I was at my desk, glued to my phone. I refreshed my social media feeds, watching as the headline broke. Local politician David Marks caught in love affair, a shocking betrayal. The article was everything Claire had promised, a deep dive into the scandal, complete with direct quotes, evidence, and even comments from people in the community. My heart raced as I read through it. There it was, everything laid bare for the world to see. My stomach churned as I scrolled down to the section about Lisa, her name prominently featured alongside David's. The words cut deep. This affair not only shattered the trust of a husband, but has also ignited conversations about loyalty and morality in public office. I couldn't help but feel a perverse satisfaction at seeing her name in print, but that was quickly overshadowed by the reality of what I had done. The fallout was going to be immense. I felt a rush of adrenaline mixed with guilt as I imagined the chaos that would ensue. As the hours ticked by, I received a flood of messages from friends and acquaintances. Some were supportive, expressing disbelief and sympathy, while others were more judgmental, questioning why I had chosen to go public. Why air dirty laundry in public? One friend texted, "This is a private matter." But it wasn't just private anymore. The affair had become a public spectacle, and I was at the center of it. I steeled myself for the inevitable confrontation with Lisa, knowing that she would be furious. Later that evening, as I returned home, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The kids were already in bed and the house was eerily quiet. I found Lisa in the living room, her expression a mixture of anger and despair. She looked up as I entered, her eyes narrowing. "You did this," she said, her voice low and shaking. "I did," I replied, feeling a sense of resolve. "This isn't just going to hurt me, Jake. It's going to hurt the kids too," she spat, her frustration boiling over. "They deserve to know the truth about you. They deserve to know who you really are," I shot back. "Do you think this makes you the hero? Do you think people will applaud you for this?" She sneered. "You've made a fool of yourself and now you'll have to deal with the consequences." I felt my heart race at her words. "I'm not the one who cheated, Lisa. I'm not the one who betrayed my family for someone else. This is on you." She took a step closer, her eyes blazing with rage. "You think you can control the narrative. You think you can dictate how this plays out. You have no idea what you've unleashed." I met her gaze, refusing to back down. "I'm not afraid of you or your threats. You've lost the right to intimidate me." The confrontation escalated from there, with Lisa hurling accusations and insults while I stood my ground, unyielding in my resolve. I could see the desperation in her eyes, and it fueled my anger. I had spent too long feeling powerless, too long letting her manipulate the situation. At some point during our argument, Lisa's phone buzzed on the table and she grabbed it, her eyes widening as she read a message. "What's happening?" she said, confusion and fear crossing her features. I didn't need to ask, I could guess. The article was making waves and the fallout was just beginning. "Looks like the truth is finally coming to light," I said, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. She turned cold, her lips pressed together in a thin line. "I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm going to make sure you regret this." "It's too late for that," I replied, my voice steady. "You made your choices and now you have to live with them." As the evening wore on, the tension in the air was palpable. I knew that Lisa was plotting her next move, and I braced myself for the storm that was sure to follow. The kids were oblivious, safe in their beds, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over us. As I lay in bed, I replayed the day's events in my mind. I had taken a monumental step toward reclaiming my life, but at what cost? I felt a mix of triumph and trepidation. The world knew the truth now, and I had to be ready for whatever came next. With the dawn of a new day, I knew the battle was far from over. I was prepared to face the fallout, ready to confront whatever consequences lay ahead. The truth had been unleashed, and I was determined to see this through to the end. I would not allow the turbulence of betrayal to define my life any longer. I was taking back control, no matter the cost. The morning after the article dropped, the world outside felt different. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of all that had transpired pressing down on me. I woke up early, the sun barely peeking through the blinds, and as I lay there, I could hear the faint sounds of my children stirring. I took a deep breath, knowing that today would not just be another day. It would be a reckoning, a day to face the consequences of my actions and the fallout from the truth I had exposed. I had no idea how Lisa would respond, but I was ready for whatever came my way. After the kids had eaten breakfast and left for school, Lisa and I faced each other in the kitchen, the atmosphere charged with unspoken words. "You really think you did the right thing?" she asked, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "I think I did what had to be done," I said, crossing my arms defiantly. "I couldn't let you continue to lie to everyone, especially not to our kids." "You think this is over? You think I'm just going to accept this?" she shot back, her tone venomous. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness at her response. "You brought this on yourself, Lisa. I didn't ask for any of this." As the day wore on, I received a barrage of messages and calls from friends, family, and even some media outlets wanting my side of the story. I was shocked by the support I received, but also by the judgment from others who thought I had gone too far. "Just handle it privately," one friend texted. "You've aired your dirty laundry for everyone to see." But I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The truth was no longer a burden I had to carry alone. I had laid it all bare, and there was something liberating about that. Later in the afternoon, I received a phone call from Claire, who wanted to check in. "The story is gaining traction, Jake. David is facing serious backlash, and we've got more people coming forward with information about him. This is just the beginning." I couldn't help but smile at the thought. I'm glad to hear it. He deserves every bit of scrutiny that comes his way. "What about Lisa? How are you holding up?" Claire asked, her voice softer now. "I'm managing. I can't control how she reacts, but I'm prepared for anything at this point," I replied, feeling a sense of resolve wash over me. As the evening approached, I braced myself for Lisa's inevitable reaction. When she finally spoke to me again, it was in a low, controlled voice. "You've made a huge mistake, Jake. You've ruined everything we built together." "No, Lisa, you ruined it. You destroyed our family with your choices, and now you have to face the consequences," I said, my frustration boiling over. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows that you're the one who started this mess," she threatened, her eyes narrowing. "Go ahead. The truth is on my side. You can't manipulate the narrative anymore." That night, after another tense dinner where the kids were blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between us, I finally felt the emotional toll of what I had done. I couldn't help but think about the impact this would have on our children. I loved them fiercely and wanted to protect them from the fallout, but the truth was that they would have to face it eventually. As I lay in bed, I reflected on everything that had happened. I had fought for my dignity and chosen to expose the truth rather than wallow in betrayal. I felt stronger, more powerful than I had in a long time, but I also felt deeply sad. I mourned the loss of the family I thought I had. The next morning, the phone rang early. It was my sister. "Jake, the news is everywhere. You need to be careful. Lisa is furious and she's talking about getting a lawyer." "Let her," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm not backing down." The thought of fighting a legal battle with Lisa filled me with anxiety, but I steeled myself. This was about more than just her infidelity. It was about standing up for myself and setting boundaries. I wouldn't let fear hold me back anymore. As the days turned into weeks, the fallout continued. David Marks faced mounting pressure from the community, and Lisa found herself increasingly isolated. The whispers and rumors about her began to circulate like wildfire. It felt like a twisted sense of justice as I watched her unravel, the woman who had betrayed me now grappling with the consequences of her actions. I focused on my children, ensuring that they felt loved and supported despite the chaos around us. I talked openly with them about the changes happening, but shielded them from the details of the affair. Sometimes Adults make choices that hurt others, I explained gently, but what matters most is that we love each other and support one another. In the midst of all this, I also sought counseling to help me navigate the emotional turmoil. I needed to process everything, the betrayal, the anger, and the heartbreak. I realized that while I had taken a stand, the journey towards healing was still ongoing. Eventually, Lisa and I began to communicate through lawyers, and while it was difficult, I started to feel a sense of closure. As we finalized the terms of our separation, I took pride in knowing that I had stood up for myself. I had faced the storm head-on, and while the road ahead would be challenging, I was ready to embrace a new chapter in my life. In the months that followed, I watched as the dust settled. Lisa had been forced to confront the consequences of her actions, and while I had lost a partner, I had gained a renewed sense of self-worth. I learned that sometimes, standing up for yourself means making hard choices. But those choices can lead to a brighter future. As I moved forward, I took with me the lessons I had learned about love, betrayal, and resilience. I was ready to write a new story, one that focused on positivity, healing, and the love I had for my children. I had been through the fire, but I had emerged stronger, and I would never let anyone take that away from me again.